Splendid day, ladies and gentlemen. So, welcome to our session from PCPD Videos on Demand. Thank you so much for patronizing our videos. Today, I'm going to tackle about the 21st century teaching learning pedagogies and teachers' roles during pandemic time. So, I divided the sessions into two because it's quite long, and there are also workshops that you're going to do in the course of our talk. Right. So, how are you at this time during pandemic? Years back, actually, if you remember and if you attended my trainings before, I tackled a portion of this topic, and I traveled in different parts of the country to conduct trainings relative to this, and I also had a chance to travel different parts of the world to give talks or present my paper. Unfortunately, at this time, because of pandemic, so it's totally different, but life must go on, and these videos on demand would be an alternative way of sharing what we have, what we can do to our fellow educators. Right? So sit back and relax as you enjoy our session for today. You ask yourself this question: what do we expect from our students during this 21st century education? And I'd like you to watch this video.
How many Albert Einsteins and Marie Curies have come and gone unknown because they lacked the ability to describe their own ideas? Sadly, the brightest spark will die if it does not catch. That's why we need not just great scientists, but great communicators who can tell nature's story in a way that grips us. In so doing, they expand their circles of enlightenment to encompass thousands. To introduce you to an incredible young science communicator, please welcome one of the founders of the Breakthrough Prize, Julia Milner, and Golden Globe nominee and author, Lily Collins.
In my advocacy for anti-bullying and self-empowerment causes, I have found that the biggest gift a child can be given is the opportunity to communicate. By having the chance to express themselves, kids not only discover who they are, they can change the entire culture.
We wanted to inspire the next generation with big ideas in math and science, and the people who really know how to talk to kids are kids themselves. That's why 3 years ago, together with Priscilla Chan and with support from Khan Academy, we established the Breakthrough Junior Challenge, a video competition for high school students. The winner this year is a remarkable science communicator.
Now is a very, very great time to live for science, since there are so many unknown questions around the world that need answers. Exactly what number is this? She says it's 6. She says it's 9. So who's right? In my video, one of the recurring themes is how I apply physics to real life. It makes people relate to the concepts on a much deeper level. The really mind-blowing idea here is that observers in different frames will perceive different versions of the same reality, and every observer's frame is equally valid.
Hillary has a really bright future. What makes her special is that she asks questions beyond our lesson. Sometimes she finds the answer by herself. She goes beyond.
I was 14 at the time, in 8th grade. We were really surprised when just suddenly the water came crashing down on our windows. Everything broke. We had to rush to the attic. The Pacific Ocean just crashed inside our house and it filled the entire house within about 3 minutes or so.
After the typhoon, everything was gone. So we have to start from scratch. That was tough, having no school facilities at all.
It's a great honor for me to have a lab provided for the school. I get to help people tangibly through this lab, and it feels especially great since it aligns with one of my biggest advocacies to extend science education to others. Once we come to understand physics, we would start to get deeper and deeper into understanding the universe. That's one of the skills that I think would make a better society. People who can think deeper than what it is at face value.
And tonight, we have a surprise for Hillary. He just arrived to celebrate her achievement.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the director of Philippine Science High School, Reynaldo Garcia.
Splendid evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hillary, remember this song? To reach the unreachable star. Truly, you have imbibed in you the vision of the school, a passion for excellence, pursuit of truth, and service to the nation. I congratulate you and your family for this feat. We're all in this together. Your dream is now a reality. Let your star shine and be the best scientist and expert that you can be. Salamat po at magandang gabi.
For her short film, Relativity and the Equivalence of Reference Frames,
The winner of the 2017 Breakthrough Junior Challenge is Hillary Andales.
I've always looked up to two kinds of stars, those that shine at night, enchanting my mind about the universe, and those that shine before me now, these amazing scientists, inspiring me with their genius and tenacity to pursue the truth. I'm grateful that this award has allowed me to become a rising star with even bigger dreams. May this inspire more young people, especially my dear Filipinos, to look up and become scientists themselves, the stars that we all should look up to. Thank you to all those who supported me throughout this journey. Maraming salamat po.
Okay, so how was the video? Are you proud of being a Filipino? I could not be prouder to represent our country in that awarding ceremony in Nassau, California. So where I gave a short speech in honor of our winner is from the Philippines. So can you imagine more than 11,000 entries from all over the world, and the Philippines got it. And our student won about $400,000 worth of prizes for her scholarship, $100,000 for our laboratory, and $50,000 for our mentor. So you must be proud of that feat, no, coming from our country. All right. So in one of our conferences that we attended, what did Hillary say in an international conference? She said that 90% of what she has acquired, what she has learned, are coming from YouTube or the internet, and only 10% comes from teacher ignition. Is it an ouch for you to know that your students might say that they only have learned 10% from you as the mentors, but majority actually comes from YouTube, internet, or their reading? We expect our students to produce best outputs and be the stars that they can be. Okay, so even if that is the picture, no, 90% from YouTube and internet and 10% from teacher ignition, you must be proud because you were able to ignite that fire in your learners, right? So even if it's only 1%, for as long as you made an impact in a way and you push the students to learn more, that is good enough. You should be happy about that, right? All right, so I'll bring you to a picture of our classroom today versus our classrooms of tomorrow. So how you were taught by your teachers, right? So maybe some of you went through the chalk and talk, where some teachers also would say, copy the board. A certain student is given a task to write on the board the topic for today, and then it is only lifted from the book, transferred to the board, and then the students would now copy what's on the board to their notebooks. Sounds familiar? Is it still happening today? Well, if it's happening today, then that is the classroom of yesterday. All right. And what else? The teacher would really be ambulating around, checking all your notebooks. If the students really copied in total what was written on the board, and then every day, for example, the teacher would really inspect the desks to make sure that the fingernails of the students are clean, the desks are clean, the bags are free from any trash, and everything. So is it still happening today? So, but of those practices that your teachers had, which of those do you still do as teachers and do you like most? Which might have given impact to you? And then what were your frustrations? What are your realizations at this time, no? Do you still recognize your teachers way back, that they have had impact in your life? As far as I am concerned, one of my teachers, no, from high school, really had an impact on my life. So, but I thought, even if it was like, how many decades ago? 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 decades ago. About 4 decades ago, but I had a mentor. Of course, she was our school principal, and she handled our classes in drama, journalism, and physics. She must be very versatile, right? Okay, so in drama, every quarter we really had to stage a production. And you know, because it was not yet technology time, so we even use coconut husk to produce smoke for our horror film. Can you relate to that? And the backdrop of the stage would really be painting or the natural environment, no, that we had at that time. So, and in journalism, we really went to the field to investigate. and write articles based on actual investigations. And in sciences, I remember one of our sessions that was about sounds and waves. We really went to the beach to experience the sounds and waves swimming, right? Actual experience. And we also had a lesson on meteorological study, and we packed our bags, our bedding, our mats, and brought them to school. At night, it had a vigil, looking at the stars in heaven, and then naming all the stars. So those were very memorable experiences for me, and I like those experiences I have had with my mentor. And in fact, when I became a teacher myself, she was really my idol. So I recalled all the class activities we have had, because those were the activities I remembered. So I just realized that the classroom of yesterday can still be the classroom of today, depending on the teacher. So what about you? From your teachers in the past, what pedagogies, what strategies do you still practice? Do you still exercise at this time? You're keeping them because you appreciate them, right? So, but do you also recall some of your teachers that caused you frustrations? And aren't you repeating those activities that your teachers did at this time because you got frustrated? Or maybe you are just doing it all over. So try to think about that. And so, what are you going to do in the classrooms of tomorrow? So, we are very well aware that in our learning before, it was more of teacher-centric. So when we speak of teacher-centric, maybe 90% or even more, it's more of the teacher talking, doing all the stuffs in the classroom. So the teacher served as the star of the day, so discussing all the lessons, and then the job of the students was just to take notes, right? And then every student was given the same learning experience. It's a one-size-fits-all experience for our students. So when the teacher would go to the class, so she was ready to give the same lesson to all the students, no? And then every student goes through the same learning activity, so there's no differentiated instruction, because anyway, they're all in grade 1, and so we provided the same learning experience, even if they have different learning styles, right? And now we have shifted to student-centric learning. I'd like to share with you my experience. You know, when you are a fresh graduate teacher, you are very idealistic, because when you do your student teaching, normally you will have to follow your lesson plan and interpretation of your lesson. So you have to follow that step by step, no? From beginning to end, from motivation up to assignment given. You have to do it every day, because your lesson plan is supposed to be daily lesson plan, so you are following it religiously. So when you become a teacher yourself, you are idealistic, because you want to do what you did when you were a student teacher, because that's what you learn in professional education, without realizing that actually when you are already in the actual field of teaching, things can change. Because like when a student just cracks a question in the class, then you might be diverted. So when I was teaching, my first few years, I taught in private school. I was so excited, and it was like learning before, no? More on teacher-centric learning. So every time I would prepare my lesson, I was so excited about my lesson to the students, and it was like a one-size-fits-all. But you know, I never thought about the different learning styles, the differentiated instruction. So I was just so excited to teach the students. And then they were also so excited. They were very receptive of the lessons and the pedagogy. So almost every day I have different strategies being used, because of the compendium of strategies that we learn in our professional education, and we want to implement all this when we go to our classroom. So it was a punctuation of my teaching career. I felt I did my best as a teacher. I was so happy. I was so excited, and my students loved my teaching pedagogies, and kept our relationship. After 4 years, I moved to public school, so the Philippine Science High School per se. And I just realized that what I was doing was not really applicable to the scholars, to the types of learners that I had that time. So they were not excited about the pedagogies that I was using. So they were telling me, English again, activity again. So I was really devastated. It was a culture shock for me, moving from a private school to public school. And so I had to be reflective as a teacher. So I did an action research to find out what could be the problems why they were not receptive of my strategies. And so I thought about autonomy of learning. I tried to explore. I researched about autonomy of learning, and then I said I'm going to attend a conference on autonomy of learning. Fortunately, I stumbled on a conference in Japan about independent learning or autonomy of learning. So they're synonymous to student-centric learning. So under student-centric learning, it's a social collaborative learning. So we give the students the opportunities to even help us develop our objectives of the lesson, and how they want to learn the lesson is also very important. So we do not impose on them how we want them to learn, but it's coming from them. And so it can be a combination of flipped learning and blended learning. So flip means that instead of you being the teacher, so the students are the ones generating ideas, exchanging ideas, and then it can be a combination. Then it can be personalized. So it's like, leave me alone. Let me learn it by myself. Give me activities, challenge me with high order thinking skills questions, and let me learn it by myself. Okay? So give me the opportunity to learn it by myself. So that's what I did. You know what I did? I asked the students to get a topic from my lessons, and then I asked them to develop their own plan. So they became student teachers themselves. So I asked them to write their plans and then implement their plans. So, and I was very excited every day because they were very creative, inventive, and innovative. So they had their way of motivating the class, discussing the lesson, doing lots of activities, so that the students would enjoy the lesson. And then there's also another way of assessing it, and then giving them assignments. And you know what, on my first year, I got a rating of 1.72 and the cutoff was 1.75. And the director said, Ray, you like to stay in PSI or not? I said, of course, mom. If you want to stay, improve your craft. Alright, so that was the first semester. And in the second semester, I got an average of 1.1 something from my teaching, because I employed student-centric learning or independent learning or autonomy of learning. Alright, so how about you? Where are you now as a teacher? Are you still on the learning before, or you are on the learning now? We must admit it that we are now in the 21st century skills, and the type of students that we have also belong to the 21st century. we don't have the monopoly of lessons, right? Of topics. In many instances, our students know better than we do, because these are the characteristics of our students in the 21st century. They work on complex, challenging tasks that require them to think deeply about subject matter, and they manage their own learning. Aren't you surprised at that? Because even our kids, for example, at home, they reason a lot. And they do not depend on us to think about on something and to decide about anything. So I could relate because my kids are also like me. So it's also very important that we provide them opportunities to collaborate with their peers, teachers, and experts on meaningful tasks using higher order thinking skills. So there were instances before that I was surprised because my students reached out to the author of the materials that they were using. Huh? So it's surprising that they have their way of connecting. And then the use of technology to make decisions, solve problems, and create new ideas. I must admit that my 15-year-old daughter is more tech savvy than I am. In fact, this video that I am doing, she's the one saving it, recording it, editing it, and then saving it in Google Drive and then email to me because I find it difficult to do all these multiple tasks. But for her, it's just easy. So that is a trend now of the 21st century students, no? So, and it is a challenge for us to develop the 4 C's of the 21st century skills. And it's very important that as teachers, we are potent partners in developing the 4 C's of our students. Number 1 is the critical thinking skills of our students. So where they can solve the problems, no? So, but this also starts at home. How the parents would allow their kids to help solve simple problems. And when they're immersed in the classes, so we also give them opportunities to solve the problems. So do not solve the problems yourself as a teacher. Then second C is communicator, understanding and communicating ideas. Allow them to speak up, allow them to ask questions, allow them to share what their thoughts are on certain topics. And then third one is collaborator. So they have to work with others, share their opinions with other people, allow them to create GCs at this virtual learning time, no? So don't limit yourself with group chat with you as a teacher, because if that is the case, they wouldn't really share much if you are there as a teacher. So allow them to create small groups, so divide them into different groups and let them create their group chats, because this is where they can communicate and collaborate. And 1C also is being a creator, producing high quality work. So it's a challenge that you give to the students to come up with a quality output because of all the development of the other C's, no? So because you help them solve problems, you help them understand and communicate their ideas, and you help them work with others, and at the end of it all, they're able to come up with quality. Alright, so from the 4 C's, 21st century skills, how today's students can stay competitive in a changing job market. So we have the following categories, no? Categorized into learning skills. Under learning skills, we have the critical thinking, the creativity, collaboration, communication. So this is only one component of the 21st century skills that the students need, no, in the job market. But they also need the literacy skills. So under literacy skills, we have information that they generate from resources, whether online or from books, then the media that they get connected with, and then technology. So it's very important that they are added to technology. And then we have life skills, which means flexibility, leadership, initiative, productivity, and social skills. So all these are very important as we prepare our students to the market. Based on the Department of Education classifications of the 21st century skills, so I'll walk you through. DepEd aims to develop holistically the 21st century skills of the learners on those core areas I mentioned earlier, on effective communication skills, life and career skills, learning and innovation skills, and then information, media, and technology skills. So from all this, with the landscape of the K-12 program, we expect that after senior high of the students, no, so they can choose any of the 4 options. So number 1 is go to higher education, pursue a degree that the students wants, and then middle level skills development for those who intend to work immediately. So maybe a 2-year course is okay. And then for those who pursued ABM, may proceed to entrepreneurship, no? Establish their own business maybe. And then for those who don't want to study anymore, maybe they don't have the capability or they just don't like to pursue higher education, they can proceed with employment. So what is your reflection about the type of education that we have with other countries, specifically in the US of A? So basically, this is similar to the education abroad, no? That after finishing senior high school, the students can now discern which path they'd like to pursue. Are we achieving that in our country? I guess not yet, but we are getting there. So slowly, maybe the students will realize the value of blue-collar job and not white-collar job. Skills development is very important at this time. Agricultural development, livelihood, skills training. So these are very important skills at this time, no, instead of pursuing higher education. But of course, the family would still be very much interested that their kids should pursue a college degree because they want to hang their diplomas on the walls, no? But we know for a fact that in other countries, they're not really very important. What is important is the earnings that they gain from work, from employment. In a nutshell, these are the curriculum exits aimed by the Department of Education to be developed among our learners. So as we said, holistically develop Filipino with 21st century skills. And so these are the skills. We recap: information, media, and technology skills, learning and innovation skills, communication skills, life and career skills, higher education skills, employment, entrepreneurship, media level skills development. So as teachers, reflect on which of these skills have we developed or are we developing among our students? Are we really preparing them for job market? So these are the characteristics of the 21st century learner, no? So this is from the Knowledge Network for Innovation in Learning and Teaching. Self-directed lifelong learners. So that means it's a self-paced learning. They also become visionary leaders. They become collaborative communicators. They are aware, adept information managers. They are adept literate performers. They are healthy humans. They are caring global citizens. And they are flexible, critical thinkers. Again, let me ask you this question. Are you developing your learners to be the 21st century learners? So which of those skills have been developed from among them? But of course, if we have 21st century learners, Okay, so this is another view from Palfrey and Gasser, no, about the 21st century learner. So be activists, create identities, maintain dossiers, be creators, promote information quality, navigate information overload, manage media violence, be innovators, and be learners themselves. So look at the similarities of these two schema, and I guess they are similar. They have same characteristics, some of them, and then the other one complement the other. So let me ask you this question again: which of these skills have we developed among our learners? So in the implementation of lesson, we try to see if we are developing the 21st century. Let me wear my eyeglasses. It's just a reading glass. Okay, so I intended to include the levels of Bloom's taxonomy, and this is the recent one from Wabi Sabi at Learning. So if you're going to look at that, the bottom is lower order thinking skills, and upper is the higher order thinking skills, right? When do we apply this in our teaching learning process? So when we are making our lesson plans, no? So we have to remember that all these levels of Bloom's taxonomy should be considered, and also in assessment, in making our examinations. So we have to make sure that we use all these possibly, and particularly the higher order thinking skills in making our table of specifications for our examinations, right? So the bottommost there is retrieving, recalling, or recognizing knowledge from memory. When learners use memory to produce definitions, facts, or lists, or to recite or retrieve material. So what is being covered is just the answers to questions, the 5 W's and 1 H. No? So somehow, particularly on the what, when, where, who. No? So those questions are answered in remembering. So try to recall what type of questions are you making in your assessment. Is it only at that level on remembering, or are you going higher to understanding? Because in understanding, it's more on constructing meaning from different types of functions, be they be written or graphic. So not only do the students understand the 4 W's, but proceed now to construction of meaning from the facts given, no, by understanding. Then after understanding, the third higher order is applying, carrying out or using a procedure through executing or implementing, relates and refers to situation in which students use learned material through products such as models, presentations, interviews, and simulations already. So it's very good that from understanding the concepts, that they're going to come up with their own models, presentations, interviews, or simulations. So they are applying now to real life situations. And then next level would be analyzing. So in analyzing, they have to break material or concepts into parts, determining how they relate or interrelate to one another or to an overall structure. So that means what is the relationship maybe of this subject, for example, to another subject. How, for example, if you have acquired skills in English and writing, so how is that important now in research writing in a science-related article? So there should be an analysis, no? So there should be a transfer of knowledge from one subject to another. All right, and the next higher order thinking skill is evaluating. So by evaluating, so it's making judgment based on criteria and standards through checking and critiquing. So your job now is to check and critique, no? the output, no, from the analysis level. And the highest level there is creating. So putting all the elements together to form a coherent or functional whole. Reorganizing elements into a new pattern or structure through generating, planning, or producing something. So it's just like doing a short film maybe, or a video. So you start to get the information that you need. Okay, when you have all the information needed now, then you try to understand the whole story itself. And then in the application stage, you don't create now the story per se based on what you've read, but applying it now to real life situation this time. And then you analyze which of those thoughts, no, of those concepts from the original and the modification would work together. Right? Then you evaluate now, make a sound judgment about that by checking and critiquing if the meat of the story is still there and if it's still applicable to the current situation. And then your last stage would be to create your own video out of a basic story that you have covered in your class. So that's what I normally do when I ask the students to produce a video. Like, I don't like them to produce Romeo and Juliet. Why? Because by producing Romeo and Juliet, they would not be able to produce a better video over the existing film, no? But contextualize it to our current situation and come up with your own production. Create your own production out of the Romeo. So what is the new story that you can create out of the old story of Romeo and Juliet? So I hope you get the point today. When you see this type of kid, no, the 21st century kid, how do you react? I know that there are really varied reactions from the teachers, especially the more traditional ones, no, reacting to that type of students. Okay, but we cannot do anything else about that because that is their way how they behave as 21st century kids. So as 21st century teachers, we have to have this characteristics, no? We should learn to create, to adapt to the changes, to be information literate, to be problem solvers, to be communicators, collaborators, self-directed, and so on and so forth. So all those skills are very important for us as 21st century teachers, because if we have 21st century students, we should also be 21st century teachers. What must 21st century teachers do to develop critical thinking in students? So these are the things that we should do as teachers. Be open-minded. I'm pretty sure that with this pandemic time, there have been paradigm shifts, no? And we have been open-minded, shifting from face-to-face instruction to virtual learning. And then analyze, reason, and evaluate. Do not make hasty decisions, but analyze closely first before we make decisions. Then reflect on learning. So when we implement something, we have to assess if the pedagogy that we use, for example, was effective or not. And then try to figure out if that would work or not. Reflect on what is the better way to do it. Then we have to engage our students in problem solving. Give them problems to solve. I remember when I was a director of the school, so I went to a class and there was no teacher in math, and I asked them, what is your lesson? And they said solving problems. So because I didn't know what to provide, what activities provide them. So I just told them, okay, 3 students go to the board and write your problems. And so they went to the board and write their problems. And then after that, I said, okay, another 3 students go to the board and solve their problems. Right, so solve the problems. And after that, okay, both of you stand in front and then explain to the class how you wrote the problem and how you solved the problem. Right, so we did that for 30 minutes and the class was for an hour. So, and then I said, everyone get 1/2 sheet of paper, write all your problems in the sheet of paper. And then after that, exchange your paper, find a partner, and then do the same thing. Discuss how the problem was developed and how the problem was solved. And the 1 period class was over. Did I teach them lessons on problem solving? Definitely yes. And it was indeed an application even of the 4 C's, because they developed the communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. So you see, that is only an example of how we engage the kids in problem solving. So just throw them question and let them answer the question. So yes, collaborate with others and then make real world applications, think critically and creatively, and then communicate clearly and accurately. So that's basically what I did when I provided them activity for problem solving in math. So all those skills are applicable. So integrate critical thinking skills within and across all content areas. So notice that sometimes as teachers, we are so limited with our subjects and we don't collaborate with other subject areas. It's very important to collaborate. Like if you're teaching English, for example, try to ask the science class what authentic materials you can use in English so that there will be interaction, will be integration of the subjects. Okay, then establish safe, intellectually risk-free learning environment. So that's very important. So they need privacy, avoid plagiarism, so educate the kids. The policies provide students with repeated opportunities to practice higher order thinking skills. That is very important. We provided opportunities for higher order thinking skills. That's what I discussed earlier. Then promote academic conversations or dialogue that foster critical thinking, right? So you just let them read a selection, get a striking statement for them and let them discuss it. There you go. You start to develop the critical thinking and then continue to bombard them with just questions and questions. Allow time to develop critical thinking skills now. So of course it cannot be developed over time, but it depends on the type of materials that you are giving. So you will be able to develop the critical thinking skills. Consistently cultivate higher order thinking skills. Yeah, that. So these are the commitments, no? Competence, creativity, compassion, and character. So these are the skills that you need as a teacher to be able to develop the critical thinking skills of the students. No? So you have the commitment. So, you know, it takes a lot of analysis also, what type of material you're going to use, what type of pedagogy you're going to use, what type of questions you're going to ask. So that means you should have the competence and the creativity, and of course the compassion to teaching, and another important character, right? All right. So the 20th century learning versus 21st century learning. So we know for a fact that the 20th century learning was more focused on learning content. So what are the lessons that you're going to deliver? But for the 21st century learning, it's more on learning the tools and skills to remake the content to become the producer and creator. So the end is producer and creator, according to Diana Roten. So are we applying that as 21st century mentors or teachers? Yes, I have said so much. I have already consumed about 40 minutes from sharing. What I would like to share with you is the greatest sign of a success for a teacher is to be able to say, the children are now working as if I did not exist, according to Maria Montessori. So, are you sad when students don't really come to you and say thank you for being a part of their lives? Maybe yes, but of course, if really you have inspired the students, they will come back and tell you that I am who I am because of you. Oh, you could just cry because you have served as an inspiration to them. Now ask yourself, have I touched lives of my students? Alright, so we are now on our open forum or workshop. So these are the questions I'd like to pose to you. What are your challenges during this COVID pandemic time? And then share your breakthroughs in the application of 21st century skills in teaching. So I'm giving you an hour for that, for coming up with your outputs and then sharing your outputs. Alright? Welcome back. So we just tackled about the teacher's roles during this pandemic time. And I'd like to pose this question to you. So what now? Now that we are in this pandemic time, so what are our alternative options we can do to continue learning in order that we provide continuity of learning to our students? So this doodle says, we have to be flexible, innovative, we have to have choices, we have to be adaptable, evolving, student-centered, transferable, we should be diverse, we should choose what preferred learning styles for our students, personalized, versatile, clever, accessible, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the big words that we need to consider at this time, right? So when we speak of flexible learning expands choice on what, when, where, and how people learn. It supports different styles of learning, including e-learning. Education has come a long way in exploiting technology for business benefits. However, a lot more needs to be achieved at this time. So I'm pretty sure that with this period during pandemic, so we have explored many opportunities in order that we will be able still to deliver learning to our students in whatever mode there is. No? But yes, flexible learning is one of the good choices. Alright, so some of you might be employing flexible learning at this time, no? Maybe some of you are into virtual learning approach, others are on modular or flexible, whatever it is. It's very important that we have to prepare for our classes, whether they are synchronous or asynchronous. So normally the schedules in the schools would be different depending on the system. So other schools would have a combination of synchronous and asynchronous, but others are purely modular instruction. So if there are 3 classes, for example, in a week, so maybe 2 classes would be synchronous and 1 period would be asynchronous, right? But we should not really be very strict about schedules with our kids. So we have to weigh things. If we need to forego synchronous classes, so why not? So like recently I appreciate one of the universities where my kids are studying, because in consideration of the mental health issues, they suspended the class for a week, no, to give break for the kids, right? So but on the level of the teachers, on your level per se, you can always consider the condition of the kids, like plan your unit, plan and schedule for resource creation. So when are you going to meet your classes, what type of resources you're going to consider, and then consider also the higher order thinking skills of the resources that you are going to use, no? So like of the 3 sessions in a week, for example, when are you going to have synchronous classes, and what type of lesson you're going to share, no? And maybe what portion in 1 hour, for example. So how long will be your speaking part? So, and what type of material you're going to use. Then very important is you factor in your own learning. So before you decide, before you conduct your classes, make sure that you have reviewed, you develop yourself professionally, you have the necessary skills, and then that's the time that you can share what you have learned to your students, no? Then limit creation of text based on purely presentational items, no, in the development of your resources. Think about ways to create materials that drive higher order thinking, engagement, presentation and text of a place, and where possible, they should be created once and redeployed as required, no? And then use iLecture when you can. So maybe sparingly, or you can record face-to-face lectures, you can record desktop captures, you can create podcasts, narrated slideshows, and podcasts to be delivered via the iLecture infrastructure. So at this point, many of the teachers would only resort to reporting of the students, but sometimes we have also to consider short iLectures would be very helpful for students. Lectures are about explaining concepts that are so poorly written about they need to be explained, right? Then reuse existing resources, both those created by you and those from third parties, or you have generated from YouTube, SlideShare, Blip, TV, and others that can be used for great effect to the learners. And then remember that web links, online journals, libraries, and other sources are all part of your toolkit. Encourage the students to learn to use this to develop their own learning. So teach scholarships as much as content. So, but you have to browse also all this before you share them to your students. And then ebooks also, electronic texts are available in many subject areas and can often cut through issues of access, especially when students are in remote locations or overseas, because at this time there are no hard copies of the books, but you can send ebooks for them or links so that they can read further the topic, the lesson that you have. Keith Holmes says that educational responses to the crisis are capable of changing the meanings, purposes, and values of a school. That's why we provide a lot of opportunities to the kids to learn more. We do not limit only on what we input to them, but we provide vast opportunities so that they can learn more the lessons at hand. So based on surveys, on researches at the moment, so roughly half of adults say that internet has been essential to them during the coronavirus outbreak. And that's really very, very true this time. But majorities do not think it is government's responsibility to ensure connectivity for all. But again, it's still very important that the government looks into this concern, because you know, we come from poor countries. This study is from the United States of America, and in the Philippines, the setting is really a bit different. That's why, because I come from the university, I am instrumental in the establishment of academic kiosks in the municipalities in Region 8. So what is the purpose of that? It's like bringing the university to every municipality. So those students who are coming from far-flung areas who don't have gadgets and who don't have access to the internet. So they go to the academic kiosk located at the local government unit infrastructure. And so in there, they can log in and attend their classes online, or maybe print their modules and upload their modules for submission also. So this can be done even in high school or elementary. So there is only a need to coordinate with the local government unit, because in the municipalities, for example, sometimes they have free Wi-Fi connection. So there would be opportunities for the students to access, and continue learning. Right? Okay, so maybe you already watched my presentation on flip learning and blended learning. So, but this is just a very short rehash of flipped and blended learning. So when we speak of flipped learning, is a pedagogical approach in which direct instruction moves from the group learning space to the individual learning space, and the resulting group space is transformed into a dynamic, interactive learning environment where the educator guides students as they apply concepts and engage creatively in the subject matter. So it's more of the teacher serving as a facilitator in the class, and then the students are the ones sharing and educating the whole class about the concepts that they have learned. So by engagement creatively in the lesson. And when we speak of blended learning, it is an approach to course design that brings together the best of both face-to-face and online strategy. So this combination aims to build from each approach to create an innovative and effective learning experience for students. So if you're going to see the balloons there, so there is a combination of face-to-face learning, then self-paced learning, and online collaborative learning. But at this point in time, we have to take out the face-to-face learning, because really there is no face-to-face learning, except of course if there is a modular approach, and then the teacher would do an extra mile to call the attention of the students, for example, observing protocols as well, so that whatever inputs that the teacher can give based on the modules being answered by the students, so the teachers can call the attention of the students. So it can still be a blended learning. Or independent, for example, so it's purely submission of modules, right? Collection, submission of modules. Then the teacher would assess these modules, and then after that, look at the record, how your students are performing, and then try to reach out to the students. So if they have the capacity to go online, maybe just Facebook or Messenger, you can do so. But if really the kids are very remote, then you can actually schedule a time to visit them once in a while, maybe once in a quarter. I think that is very important that we employ blended learning. So what is the difference between flipped versus traditional? So when we see flipped, teacher instruct lesson at home, video, podcast, book, and websites, and then students work in class. So there is a deeper understanding of concepts, application, and connections to content are made. Students receive support as needed. So in other words, it can be both face-to-face or virtual instruction as well. So, but the teacher will just break an ice, and then the students now are the ones looking for possibilities so that they would digest the topic given to them in using the 21st century skills, through communication, through collaboration, to creativity and critical thinking. All right. So, and then when they have gathered all this information, when they have learned so much from the topic given to them, then they're going to share that to the class, and the teacher will just be listening and maybe give comments about the sharing. So that's the classroom. Whereas the job of the teacher really is to instruct, then the students take important notes, students follow guided instruction, teacher gives assessment, and students have homework. So it's basically the sequence of the lesson plan that you have to follow in a traditional classroom. So this one, flipped teaching and learning. So it's also a form of blended learning. There is more teacher-student interaction. There's digital learning material being used, and then there is review and reinforcement at the end. So that's why flipped teaching and learning is really very important. So what are the advantages of flipped classroom? Because it's not the teacher giving everything to the students, so there is ownership for learning among the students. Then it promotes student-centered learning and collaboration because you give them ample time to discuss from among themselves about the topic. The lessons and content are more accessible. They can go internet and search for information about the topic given to them. It emphasizes on cooperative learning, gives more time to explore the content because it answers the questions: what do they want to learn, when they want to learn it, and how they want to learn it. It can be more efficient for the students because it's based on their pace, no? It's based on their pace. So other advantages of flipped learning: promotes poor interaction and collaboration skills, makes learning central rather than teaching, encourages higher student engagement, fosters independent learning, and then promotes individualized attention. There is an increase of the individualized attention, no? Because the teacher will attend to the question of the student in the classroom. So let's pretend this is a face-to-face class. First is the students prepare to participate in class activities. That is before. So during the class, the students practice applying key concepts with feedback. So in other words, the lesson was given ahead of time, and then before the students go to the class, so they are ready, they are prepared for the class activities. And then so during they apply the key concepts, and then the teacher will give feedback, and then after that the student check their understanding and extend their learning. So it does not end in the classroom per se, but even out of class, they continue to learn. That's why there is really ownership of the lesson. So in blended learning, so we have different ways. One is focus and mastery. Why there is focus and mastery? Because we leave it to the kids to discover, to have a lot of resources so that they will have mastery of the concepts given to them. And then there are virtual learning platforms that we can provide them. So maybe we can give them links, or they can discover themselves. Sometimes they know better than we do. Then it's an inquiry project-based learning. So we provide them opportunities to ask themselves, develop projects based on their own creation. Then there is integration of technology, and we also look into the global connectivity, global connections of the topic. Then it can be a game-based learning. It depends on the strategy that they are using. Then there can also be direct instruction from the teacher, and very important in terms of collaboration is peer-to-peer coaching. So that's blended instruction. So in blended learning, it allows students to work at their own pace and at their own level. So 95% says that blended learning increases student engagement and improves academic performance. So that's already very high. 72% of teachers use blended learning in their lessons. 84% of teachers say blended learning saves them time and energy, right? So that's why blended learning really is very good tool at this time. So in blended learning, we have synchronous physical formats, and then we have self-paced asynchronous formats. So this is very popular at this time now. So mostly some schools would have 3 sessions a week, as I said, only 1 session for synchronous and 2 sessions for asynchronous. But if there is a need for the teacher to meet the students, then there can be the other schedule can be used for either synchronous or asynchronous. So in flipped classroom, so the activities would be student-centered. The classroom is very interactive, and then it's only teacher-aided. And then out of class activities, it's teacher-centered, it's lecture method, and it's computer-aided. The effectivity comparison with traditional learning, effectivity to high and moderate low performing students. Okay, are you now ready for a workshop and demo teaching? So then you will be required to submit your videos so that you will be given certificate for that, and then of course the PCPD credits for your attendance to this virtual seminar. So I'd like you to make a lesson plan, applying concepts, learn on flexible learning, focus on flipped or blended learning, and then prepare a demo teaching video, and also include in your submission the lesson plan, right? So you are given 2 hours for this workshop and demo teaching. Okay, I'd like to walk you through to universal design versus multiple intelligences. Universal design learning claims to be addressing the reality of learner diversity in an educational climate of high expectations. So we have to consider that when we go to our classes, our students really have diverse personalities. They have multiple intelligences, and so the answer to that is we also design our lesson based on the students. As Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence suggests, that the traditional notion of intelligence based on IQ testing is far too limited, and we look into the different intelligences of the students, and I'm pretty sure you're already familiar with this. So even if we are into virtual instruction, I guess it's still very important that we have to consider the multiple intelligences of the students vis-a-vis the learning styles of the students. So it's still applicable even if we are not giving face-to-face discussion there. So the learning styles will still be applicable, because we can give our students a chance to learn on their own by just simply reading, because they might not want to be listening to our discussion. So still we are giving varied opportunities for the students. So we have to look into consideration developing the different multiple intelligences of our students. So our aim as teachers is to develop as much as possible majority of all these intelligences, because the student should not settle with only one intelligence. So if you're going to look at all this existentialists, or philosopher or theories, so you can identify who among your students have these characteristics. Interpersonal, so like they serve as counselor, politicians, spokespersons, so or intrapersonal, researcher, novelist, entrepreneur, bodily kinesthetic, athlete, firefighter, actor, musical or rhythmic intelligence. So they can be musician, composer, or disc jockey. So those who are verbal or linguistic, like journalist, teacher, or lawyer. Logical or mathematical, engineer, programmer, accountants. Naturalists, environmentalists, farmer, botanist. Visual or spatial navigator, sculptor, architect. So from those characteristics, immediately we can identify what type of students do we have. So maybe some of our students would have 2, 3, 4, 5. It depends on the skills, but we can also help develop the other intelligences. At the end of the day, our aim is to develop really all those intelligences. How about that? So if you're able to develop all the intelligences of our kids. So in basic education, we can employ different pedagogies catering to the different intelligences of our students. But of course, when they go to college, it's a different thing because it's already more of self-yearning. So the professors would just, break an ice, would just give the topic, a short talk about something, and it's for the kids to explore. Given. So another one is teaching integration called design thinking. So when I had an immersion in Singapore for maybe a month, so we went to a technological university and they have a subject design thinking, really. So they have a subject design thinking, and in the whole year, their job is to follow the process. Start with portfolio. So like in their class, for example, so they have a project. Like if their project, for example, is a cell phone holder, for example, like this, right? Okay. So for the whole year, this is the only project that they're going to do. So the first thing that they do is they develop a portfolio. So portfolio means the process of brainstorming using different ways to learn. So so of course they conduct a lot of research, and then by researching, they sketch, they write, they view, and they pose question as a problem and finding various solutions, working alone or with peers. So that is portfolio making. And when we went to their design thinking class, so we saw their portfolio. Their portfolio is as wide as this and as thick as this for the whole semester. So for the whole semester, they solely developed the portfolio, and for the second semester is already on the presentation board and coming up with the artifact. So after the portfolio making, it's basically an identification of what is the problem and what solution that they want to propose. And then presentation board follows, making an output after exhausting the topic. So like producing slides, videos, or paper and miniature, and then it will be followed by an oral or poster presentation, then the publication or internet sharing or uploading. Then after that will be the artifact. So it's a production of the actual miniatures, if it's a gadget, a product, design. And then at the end of the second semester, there is an exhibit or launching of the product developed. So we went to their exhibit area and we saw a lot of artifacts, a lot of products developed from their classes design thinking. So it's really very, very helpful to them. Okay, so another is understanding by design, or we commonly call it as UBD. I'm pretty sure you've heard about this, but not many of us are actually practicing this. But for those who are promoting autonomy of learning, this is really very popular. So this is the process, the refinement of the curriculum followed by understanding by design model. This is developed by J. McTighe and Grant Wiggins. These are the following elements in the stage 1. So we talk about the results and desired outcomes. So the stage defines what students should be able to know and do at the end of the program, course, or unit, or study generally expressed in terms of overall goals, specifically defined terms of contents and performance standards. So what is it that the students would want as their outcomes, results of the course of the program? So in other words, there is really an involvement of the students in the process. So even in the stage 1, so they are involved. The teachers involve them. All right. So in the stage 2, it's the assessment. Defines acceptable evidence of students' attainment of desired results, determines authentic performance tasks that the students expected to do to demonstrate the desired understanding and defines the criteria against which the student's performances or products shall be judged. Right? So after setting the desired outcomes, then the students would now think of what would be the assessment that they're going to do so that they will be able to achieve the desired outcomes. And then after that, the stage 3 would be the learning plan. So the learning plan would now detail the instructional activities that the students will go through to attain the standards. All right? So the process requires coordination of different disciplines, including art, science, engineering, and fun. So this is very important in the teaching learning process, no? That there should be a coordination of all these aspects of learning, and most important also is fun. So as a teacher, do you make your teaching fun? Are the kids enjoying your lessons? Okay, so then we have project-based learning. This is very common at this time, no? We give our students a chance to propose what project they want. So maybe it's very important that we ask them to craft proposal for the project that they want to develop, and then in the project proposal, we have to identify the objectives, the nature of activities that they're going to do, the budget requirements, the time frame, and the persons involved. So what are the tasks assigned to every member of the group? So we have to make sure and monitor that everyone in the group is cooperating and participating. So there is a contribution. So there is ownership for every person. Then, as a teacher, you should develop your rubrics, your matrix, how you're going to rate the project. All right? What is the role of the teacher in the project-based learning? So the teacher serves as a facilitator. The teacher models thinking and problem-solving strategies effectively. And the teacher would structure the meaningful task to be done by the students. He works with the students to frame worthwhile questions. So it's more of working closely with them, but not dictating what they're going to do. So he manages the structure of multiple day-to-day activities to produce high-quality outcomes. The teacher teaches the students just to set goals from among themselves. No? So the goal should not come from the teacher himself or herself. So the goal should come from the students. Then the role of the students now would be to set goals, what they want to achieve. That's why we are employing understanding by design. And then they have to explore and ask questions as well. And they have to work closely with peers. And at the end of the day, they should stay accountable to self, to peer, and teacher for project outcomes. So there is no pointing fingers, there's no blaming here, but the student should be accountable for the outputs. I'll share with you findings from National Training Laboratories in Nat'l, Maine about the average student retention rates. That's why as teachers, we are asked to innovate, because if we do not innovate, so this is the figure that we see, this is the pyramid. So for lecture, the retention is way below 10% if you keep on giving lecture. By reading, the retention of the students is 10%. So I am afraid, because I am on leave now and I'm reading, I don't know if I'm going to retain the 10%. Audiovisual presentations, the retention to the students is higher, that's 20%. Then if you have the demonstration, the retention is 30%. And if you have discussion, the retention is 50%. If it is practice by doing, learning by doing, that is a bit higher, that is 75%. And if the students are the one teaching others, the retention is 90%. Because you see, they cannot teach what they don't have. So they have to explore deeply the concepts, the ideas, so that they will be able to deliver that. That this is really the essence of autonomy of learning on student-centric learning, because they have to call out information of the topic of the concept so that they will understand it more. So that's the learning pyramid. That's why we have to be innovative as teachers. I have learned so many lessons as a teacher myself. So when I became an administrator, I learned more. And I had the opportunity also to share what I learned to the teachers themselves. So there is a story behind this slide. No? So as an administrator of a school, I would normally ambulate around and observe my teachers. How are they doing? One of my teachers actually was a graduate of UP and a professor in UP, but moved to Pisay. So, you know, teaching in college is a bit different to teaching in high school, right? So, mostly, she would employ lecture discussion in the class. So I told her, can we have peer teaching? So we tried to handle peer teaching. I remember the lesson was Iliad, right? So Iliad. So we had peer teaching. We had controlled group and we had an experimental group. So she was the one handling the class with the traditional method, I would say, and then I was handling the class using literary circle as English as second language, communicative pedagogy, and teaching literature. All right. So you know how a traditional method is done. So the teacher would give motivation, then allow the students to read, then discuss comprehension questions, ask questions, and ask students to answer the questions. After that, maybe an activity. Then after that, give an assessment. Done. So in the literary circle class, it was different because the students were grouped into different groups like this, no? So this is the bigger picture of literature circle. So you have a discussion director, you have savvy communicator or summarizer, you have creative connector, imaginative illustrator, literary luminary, word wizard, travel tracker, and character captain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 groups here, but I reduced this to 5 groups only. So, and then I focus on the 5 areas. Number 1 group is discussion director. The job of the group is to write a list of questions that the group might want to discuss about this part of the book. Then the best questions will come from their own thoughts, feelings, and ideas about the section of that literary piece. Then the other one is connector. The job of the connector is to find connections between the book they are reading and the outside world, no? So this means connecting what they read with their own lives, to what happens at school or in the community, or to similar events at other times and places, or to other people or problems. So that means connecting Iliad to real life situation. Then the other group was a summarizer. The job is to prepare a summary of the reading. They don't tell the whole story. They just focus on the important events, especially on the development of the plot, no? From the introduction up to the climax, denouement, up to the falling action. Alright, then the other group was the vocabulary enricher. Their job is to look for a few important words in the reading. If they find words puzzling or unfamiliar, they mark them down while they are reading, and then later they can look up the meaning of the dictionary, yeah, and write down the definitions. But they can also have other ways of introducing the word, like game, whatever. So they are very creative. And the last group was illustrator. The job of the illustrator is to draw some kind of a picture or painting related to what they have read in that section. So it can be a sketch, a cartoon, or a diagram, or a stick figure scene. No? So it can be about something that they read, something that the reading reminded them about, or an element of the story. No? For example, the plot, the character, or the setting. So they can choose which part they're going to illustrate. All right, so that's it. These 5 groups. So in the presentation of the lesson, the moment you enter the class, you just give the motivation. Then after that, you divide immediately the class into 5, and then give them time to maybe discuss from among themselves how they're going to present it. But we presume that they already have read the selection, and so they're going now to present per group. Your job as a teacher is to stay at the back and listen to their discussion, and you have a rubrics now to check how they are doing each group. And then after that, your job is just to process learning and then give assessment. And you know how I did it in the assessment? It's a fun experience because one day when I went to my class, I forgot that I was supposed to give them a quiz. And you know, they're scholars and they're excited to have a test. So when I went to the class, one of the students said, "Sir, isn't it that you're going to give us a quiz today?" "Oh, yeah, I remember. Yes, okay. Everyone, please get 1/2 sheet of paper. In your paper, write a question, multiple choice with 4 options, A, B, C, D. So from the previous lessons we had, no? Be sure to encircle the correct answer because, you know, I was afraid I might not be able to answer the question. You know, these are intelligent students. And I also discussed with them about the Bloom's taxonomy of learning and how they're going to frame their questions in our previous session. So they know very well that I wanted questions on a higher thinking skills, no? Higher order thinking skills. So, and then because there are 30 students, I asked them to write 2 questions, no? Then I said, if one of your questions will be considered, then you are automatically getting 5 points for that. Okay, so after that, then I let them pass the paper, then I sorted out the questions and finally got 30 questions. Actually, each student had 1 question. And you know, I was so surprised to see that the students are really very good in framing questions. And I told myself, I won't be able to develop these questions just in one night, no? And they're really quality questions. And so I said, okay, get 1/2 lengthwise, number your paper 1 to 30. All right. So I read the questions coming from them. They were so excited because those were their questions. And then I also added 2 essay questions. And of course, I was the one who framed the essay questions. All right, so that's 50 items, 30 items for the multiple choice question, and then 10 items for essay, and 15 items, I guess, for essay, and then 5 items for the question considered. All right, so there you go. I guess the lowest score was more than 40. All right, so and then after that, with the 60 questions, I item analyzed the questions and came up with a test bank. I was able to keep about 25 questions, no? So they are really quality questions. Then after that, we analyze the results of the study based on the assessment that my teacher did, and which I did. All right, so we gave them the same questions, and then the results showed that there was a very nil difference of their performance, no? So I was a bit sad about it because I thought that they would get better scores in my class. But the realization I had, the implication I had was that means even without a teacher, the students can learn from themselves. So the retention is 90% and above because they teach each other, right? And that's a very good realization. And you know what happened after that? I presented the abstract of my paper to a conference in Ireland because that's one of my dream countries. So, and then the abstract was accepted. Then I was asked to present the paper. So I went to Ireland to present the paper just based on action research. And so I guess you are familiar already what literature circle is. Okay. Hi, splendid day, everyone. Welcome to our session from the PCPD Videos on Demand. Thank you so much for your participation, for patronizing the Videos on Demand at PCPD. So the topic that I'm going to tackle today would be the 21st century learning pedagogies and teachers' roles during pandemic time. But in this first session, I'll be focusing more on the teachers' roles during pandemic time. So I divided the session into two because it's quite long. All right. So how are we during this pandemic time? I know that there have been a lot of challenges that we have been facing due to this pandemic, but we have no choice otherwise but continue learning and continue also to provide a continuity of learning to our students. So I hope that as we journey towards our learning experiences with our students, we also take care of our health, no? Physically and mentally. And basically, this session will be focused more on what are our roles as teachers during this pandemic time. Are we good? All right. Thank you. Okay, so we are currently in a pandemic period, so it's more than a year. So we must have a lot of experiences already to share. Um, and then we cannot describe how we feel right now because of this coronavirus, and we have to abide with all the protocols. And greatly affected is the education sector because there have been no classes already for a long period of time. And let's try to look into our experiences as well as the experiences of our students. So, as educators, how do you feel right now? So, do you have any of those negative feelings? There is anxiety, stress, worried, uncertain. You have fear, you're sad, you are frustrated, overwhelmed, and confused. But there must also be positive feelings, like, yeah, we are still curious, we love every day what we do, at times we are happy, and we are still optimistic that life must go on, and we just keep calm amidst this pandemic and be joyful. All right. So these are some of the feelings that we cannot invalidate right now, what we feel among us as educators. But according to State Teachers of the Year, these are the qualities of a great teacher. Try to pick one, any of these qualities, or more of these qualities. So I'm pretty sure you have these qualities. Keeping the relationships, being compassionate and passionate, flexible, nurturing, innovative, committed, positive, creative, inspiring, enthusiastic, and the sense of humor that you have. So pick any of this word. What do you have? All right, so the first workshop that we do before I proceed would be this. Reflect on any crisis that you or your family went through. What are the feelings evoked from the experiences? What are your characteristics as a teacher? So, what are your actual characteristics amidst this pandemic time, no? And then write a journal of your struggles and coping mechanisms. So you can do this in 30 minutes, and then you can share your journal to PCPD, right, for us to look into as well. Okay, thank you so much for your short reflection. Okay, so this is it. The teacher's role on the continuity of learning amidst crisis. Later on, I'll be presenting data based on action research. So this will be the outline of our session one. Definition of keywords, continuity of learning, and the crisis that we go through. What are the role of teachers from my own experience and other experiences? And from the perspectives of the parents, administrators, teachers, and students. Then wrapping up the teachers' roles and the opportunities in crisis on a personal note about Yolanda and COVID-19. So we proceed. What are the roles of teachers during this pandemic? So what are your roles during this pandemic? So where are you in that picture? So they're not wearing masks. All right, so I'd like to share with you um, my experience during Yolanda time. I was the director then of Philippine Science High School, and my family and I stayed in the school to protect the school from damage and intrusion, maybe. Unfortunately, when the typhoon hit Eastern Visayas, it was really very, very strong, and the building where we were located was damaged slowly, and we just hit a portion of the office. And then we really hid under the table literally for about 5 hours until the typhoon slowed down. And after a while, the guard came in to rescue us. And as I looked outside, I saw hues of black and brown, no more green plans, and everywhere there was devastation, and I thought there was no hope of recovery. And with that experience, because the whole school was damaged, so we had to suspend our classes for a month or two because we housed about 3,000 evacuees. So it was very difficult to handle 3,000 people in the school, using the school as their house, no? And slowly, I organized them into small groups with the help of the faculty and staff. And we asked them to bring with them the debris from the school so that they can start rebuilding their homes in the respective localities. And then after a month, they vacated, and we also started to rebuild the school so that we could start our classes. So thank God we had donations from benevolent individuals and groups, and so we were able to roof our buildings in a month or so. And after 2 months, we were able to start our classes, and it was really totally different because we lost all our resources. Our laboratories and equipment were all damaged. So it's like no equipment and facilities, but merely students and teachers. But it taught us to be more resilient. Okay? And then after about 6 years, here comes another dreaded disease, the pandemic COVID-19. Right. And what was different was Yolanda was experienced only by some people from Eastern Visayas, but this one, COVID-19, is experienced worldwide. Huh? And if you're going to see, at least we only suspended our classes for 2 months, but at this time, it's more than a year that we have been suspending our classes. And we do not know who our enemy is. We always have to be careful, especially now that the cases would surge about 10 to 15,000 every day all over the country. So, and it's really, really very fearful. No? We don't know who will be hit by that day, right? So, and it's good that we have learned many modalities at this time as an alternative way of delivering the lessons to our students. All right, so one role of a teacher is being a system supporter. As teachers, we need to embrace and support the learning modalities prescribed by the institution we are connected with. So they could be different, no, depending on the institution you are in, Google Classroom, Canva, Edmodo, and many others. So whatever it is that we are using in the certain institution, we just have to support because it will not help if we keep on resisting and think that we cannot make it. So our aim is always, we can make it. Supporting the modality can mean that we seek ways to prepare ourselves for this new mode of learning. So recently, I sat in a research defense of senior high school students, and majority of their students studied about the effects or the impact of the virtual instruction to the academic performance of the students. And there was a group that assessed one learning management system, and it found out that 80% of the efficacy of the learning management system. So that means there's a missing 20%. So I told them that it's good that you're able to review that. I even asked them how much is your incentive from the provider of the learning management system. Your study should give an input to the administration how they can improve so that the provider can also improve the efficacy of the LMS. Right. But you know what? The amazing result I saw from the varied studies is that at this time, the academic performance of the students is even better than that time that we had physical contact. I don't know if that is also true to you. Because in their assessment, no, for example, they conducted the language proficiency as related to their academic performance now. So they uh, grades, majority of the grades range only from 70 to 95 for the exam, no, actual exam, but that was a standardized exam. But for their academic performance, all of the students got a grade of 90 and above. So in other words, they have no problem with virtual learning, and we say that there are many problems. So in that case, that means the virtual learning would even yield better results in the academic performance of our students. So how true is that in your experience? What could be the factors, no, that affect their academic performance? All right. So the second role of the teacher is to be a bridge or messenger. So the teachers serve as connector or conjunction between the school and the parents. So basically, in our mode of communicating, of delivering our services would be through the learning management system that we have and other social networks. So distance learning or modular learning, we shall need to forge a very strong connection with our parents. We have to achieve the learning goals we have set for our learners. And then, of course, by achieving that, we need or we require support from the parents, no? It's very important. So even before conducting your virtual instruction, maybe, I don't know, if you have called the parents to educate them. So we have a school right now. What we do is before we start our classes, we have a session because it's a pre-LM school, no? So before we start our classes, we would call the parents for an assembly via Zoom, and then we would teach them how to handle their kids during this pandemic time. And of course, it's also very important that we should have a rapid assessment of who among our students have the capability in terms of internet connectivity and in terms of gadget availability and parents or guardian supporting them in the teaching learning process because it's very important that the parents are involved. So in our session, we teach them how to assist the kids because you see the parents right now serve as teachers. In fact, there have been clamors of parents that they should be paid for being teachers at this time because you know the teachers cannot really do everything like in the physical instruction. So kids should be supervised by their parents, especially mostly in pre-elementary and elementary level. Okay. So for students who do not have access to the internet, learning modules or guides are sent to the students. So it depends on the school, no? It depends. So if you are from DepEd, I guess it's mostly learning modules or guides which are delivered to them. The parents would claim that in the school. So there is a claim area for modules and guides. But in private schools, so they have learning management systems provider. All right. So, but you know, basic consideration really here is whether you are in private or government, it's very important that we should have a background data information about our kids in terms of availability of gadgets and internet connectivity so that we would know how we get in touch with them in case there is a need to. There are some problems in terms of performance or submissions. So we have to always bridge and serve as messenger to our. All right, so the third role of teacher is a lifeline. We know very well that life has not been easy for us, especially to our students during this pandemic times. Why is it so? Because of this drastic change, kids have been caught on alarm. What's going to happen? So we are not prepared actually. How are we going to combat this pandemic? So the shift of lifestyle has really affected us. No? So, especially the students that they don't have interaction anymore with their peers, with their classmates. So, they don't wake up, prepare themselves, and go to their classes every day and have time to spend moments with their classmates. So, many of them are faced with threats of uncertainties, and everyone is uncertain what's going to happen after this. When is it going to end? So as teachers, we can serve as the lifeline of the students if when they feel not okay. But it's good also that we provide them opportunities to make connections with their friends and classmates through group chat, and I guess they're doing that. And then for me personally as a parent, I would allow my kids to visit their friends or to be visited, to go out, hang out, just to chill once in a while after the rigors of academics. But I always attend to them. No, I send them and fetch them, and we make sure that they're safe in the place that they go to, and that they observe protocols. I think that's still very important that we give them little time for physical contact. So sometimes it helps that we make our students feel they are not alone. So we are there to provide comfort also if they're not okay, right? Are we doing this? Do we serve as lifeline to our students? Or is it always that they're afraid to approach us? Huh? Okay. Another one is a counselor. So it's similar to Lifeline, but different in degree, no? So counselor is a person trained to give guidance and personal, social, psychological problems. So are you doing this? Are you serving as a guidance counselor to your students? Because there's only one guidance counselor in the school, and so all the problems and concerns of the students cannot be attended to. But as an advisor or as a subject teacher, you are in direct contact with the students. So what do you do? How are you assisting the students as a counselor? So many times the students would need guidance because they seem lost in their journey. And there have been lots of stories about students quitting from their classes or even at the verge of, committing suicide because of depression. We help them get back to the right path. And also maybe as teachers, we have to consider what is the magnitude of tasks that we are giving our students, because the tendency is we overload them with a lot of activities without considering the time of our students. So take note that they have about 7 subjects maybe, or 8 subjects, and maybe 2 to 3 synchronous classes every day, and then there would be asynchronous classes also. So we have to tone down of our tasks given to them, no, to comply. Again, in the research presentation I sat, no, there was also a question about how many times the kids are exposed to the learning management system, and 80% of them answered that they are connected, they have access to the LMS daily. Only 20% said only weekdays. And the researchers thought it was okay. I said, I don't think that is okay because the students are not supposed to be accessing the LMS every day. And then even at night or wee hours, I think that is not okay, right? So we only provide tasks, exercises, requirements, projects to our students only for our period. So if our subject requires 3 hours only, let's make it a point that we have synchronous classes maybe for an hour. So that's a time that you give feedback, process, uh, the students know in terms of the responses, and then asynchronous classes would be their time to comply their tasks, maybe 2 sessions. So, and that's it. Do not give them tasks that they're going to work overnight or weekend because you gave so many tasks for them to comply with. So be sure to think about the other subjects, the other requirements that they might be doing, and then limit yourself with with the schedule that you have as a teacher. Right? So what about you? What have you been doing? Are you overloading your students and they're overwhelmed that they're going to do because of the voluminous tasks that you are giving them? Right? Think about that. Okay, the next role of teacher is facilitator. Let us not forget that though we are in different learning modality, our role still remains now to empower the students to make decisions for their own learning. So take note, empower. So we let them make their own decision. So we do not impose, no? We do not simply tell them what they're going to do, but rather engage them in the teaching learning process. So I will highlight more of this on the second session about how we're going to employ autonomy of learning, independent learning, or student-centric learning ways, no, for our students. So as I promised earlier, this presentation is based also on action research survey, and I'd like to thank my wife for helping me out conduct the survey among the students. So based on the survey from parents, they say that teachers need to reinvent their role. So maybe they have to go out of their shell, of their paradigm, change their paradigms, no? And think about what is the best way that can be done at this time. So people are bounded only by internet access or modules. So because this is the best learning modality this time. So it depends on the school. If the school is providing LMS, so there is virtual instruction, but if not, then there can be modular instruction. So as teachers, be creative enough to provide different pathways of learning. So in consideration of the different learning styles of the students and the different multiple intelligences of the students. So be a mentor facilitator, not a dictator. That's why you have to empower the students what they want to learn and do not dictate on them what they're going to do. Then give psychosocial first aid to the students. It's very important because you know there are red flags. When there are red flags, you know what you're going to do as a teacher. And I guess it's also important to be trained as a teacher, know how we're going to look at the behavior of the students. So disseminate right information regarding coronavirus, keep updated, and assist the students to cope with the new normal learning. As we say, there have been lots of challenges among our students, and our role is to help our students. Although we also need help, but we are mature enough to take care of ourselves. So there is a statement from a mom, and you would really feel being appreciated with this. As a mom can see and appreciate even more how much effort it takes to be an effective and efficient educator. I see their creativity and passion for teaching highlighted. I see how much my kids are learning and complaining, of course. I can never thank these teachers enough for all that they've done. Oh, kudos to you, teachers, if you are doing this. Okay. I have heard some stories of teachers that many of them are so engaged in online businesses and leaving their responsibilities instead. Bato-bato sa langit, ang tamaan, wag magalit. So I hope your priority is still your students. Alright? So secondary na lang ang mga businesses. From the viewpoint of the administrators, so these are the things that the administrators do and comment. Printing of our learners' modules and other learning materials, and which is also very expensive. Facilitate on the segregation and binding of the modules. Provide these learning materials to the parents on a weekly basis, only done at school, with the parents coming to pick materials up. So there is a designated area for claiming and delivering the modules, and this is even a challenge to the parents as well because the kids are not allowed to pick and deliver or return the module. So that means the parents are doing this. What if the parents are working? So someone in the family should do it for the children. Retrieve modules answered by the learners. Same way, parents are the ones coming to school to return answered modules and same time get another set of modules. Yeah, that's the normal routine for DepEd schools, no? Teachers check modules and assess learners' performance. Should learners need specific assistance, the teacher shall craft materials for the necessary intervention to be done. So these materials shall be given through the parents. So are you doing this, dear teachers? Because I've heard also stories from students that the teachers do not give them feedback from the modules delivered, so they just keep on answering without knowing what's the feedback from the teachers. Ideally, so when the modules are delivered, you're supposed to check the modules and then find out what the problems are and then inform the students, give feedback about that. So if there are problems, then you're going to devise other exercises, activities so that the students can cope with the lesson. So that's what it says, no? Teachers provide accurate feedback to the parents regarding the results of the modules answered. So not only the children, but also the parents are involved. They make lesson guides and conceptualize best projects to be done at home by their pupils. So during asynchronous classes, that's the time that the kids can work on their task given by the teacher and projects, comply the projects. They assist parents when necessary, and also the parents assist the kids very necessarily. So they serve as frontliners in the school also based on their schedules. And then they support all programs and projects which the school implements and they participate. No? All must strictly observe all health protocols. So this is from the viewpoint of the administrators. Very true. And based on the survey from the teachers, so they say be compassionate and humanize education amidst this pandemic because teaching is an act of love, care, and support. So where are you as a teacher? Are you doing this? Are you doing this an act of love, care, and support? Are you considering your kids as your second children? Do you treat them like your children as well? Teachers must be resilient enough in embracing the new normal in education, and teachers are known for detecting the cause of problems and possess the strong social connections and be identified as strong survivors and not a victim of this crisis called COVID-19 pandemic. You're right. No? So teachers are really very resilient. So in fact, you see, teachers are used in many government activities, in the local government unit, in elections, right? And sometimes there is no additional remuneration for that. But anyway, you continue your services for the love of the country and its people. So, teachers must be flexible in adapting the current trends in teaching and learn new applications that will be used to connect to their 21st century learners. Okay, so we are not static, we keep on learning, and it's amazing that we make use, maximize the potentials of ICT technology so that we can deliver the lessons the best of our abilities. So there's a comment of a teacher as an educator. I think the best thing that I can do during this crisis is to make myself available whenever my students need my input and help. Wow. So both distance learning and academic freeze tag along so many challenges, not only the teachers but also upon students and parents. That is very true. And I think extending help, even just virtually to our learners, will somehow make a difference. So are you making that difference to your students? Or you're done after your synchronous class, you're done and you do anything that you want to do. Teachers must do the task in the reproduction, binding, segregation, distribution, retrieval, and checking of all activity sheets and learning modules used in the modular approach. It can be devastating. I understand also that sometimes it's really hard to be giving feedback immediately because if you're handling 5 to 7 sections composed of 50 students, you can just imagine the modules that you're going to check. So the technique here is if you don't want to do a lot of things, do not bombard your students with so many things to do as well, right? So only what they can comply with, what they can finish, and what you can also accomplish as a teacher. Because at the end of the day, you will both be bombarded with a lot of tasks to do. So be critical. What is essential? What would help develop the kids? So only those. Teachers must coordinate with the parents to monitor child status with regards to the modular approach. Can you imagine that? The task that you do, so it's not only the parents that you are coordinating with, but also the students, but also the parents, right? In addition to that, teachers give innovations to those pupils who cannot cope with the given activity. So it's not one size fits all class. So it should be differentiated instruction, consideration of the individuality of the child because there is no child left behind. So everyone is well attended to. So participate and support all programs and projects implemented by the school. You see the multi roles you play as teachers. continue the passion of providing quality education to the children despite the crisis. Earlier, I said that the students' grade have drastically improved during this pandemic time. I don't know if it's a good or bad sign. So, in fact, in many universities also recently, just by the influx of the pandemic, we noticed that many students edged out as dean's listers, no, finishing their degrees with as cum laude, summa cum laude, or magna cum laude. Huh? So, and the number increased. It's amazing in this pandemic time. So, is it because of the access to technology that the kids learn more? Or is it because it's more of student centric? We are giving more opportunities to kids to explore more? Okay, so these are some factors. To ensure that health protocols are strictly followed for the safety of the learners, the teachers, as well as the community, to help produce learning continuity programs like broadcast through radio and television, and provide resources such as textbooks, study guides, and other learning materials to the poorest, or through establishing a remote tutoring service. So in the university, actually, I am one of the prime movers of establishing academic kiosks, no, in every in the municipalities. So 8 municipalities were assigned to us, and we set up the academic kiosk. We coordinated with the local government unit, so they provided a room or a space, and then with internet connectivity through the DICT and the local provider, and then we provided sets of computers, printers, and so the students with no gadgets and internet connectivity would go there to attend to virtual instruction based on their schedules, and then print their modules and deliver their modules also for uploading. Right. So if that is done in the university, in the college level, so I think it is also very important that this is also done in the basic education. So making every municipality or local uh, government unit as an education hub, no? So where students coming from the far-flung areas, remote barangays who don't have access to the internet can go there and attend virtual classes if necessary, or simply print their modules and upload their modules. Or they can conduct research. So there are already many municipalities with free Wi-Fi connections. So maybe the local government unit can provide a space for the students just to research or maybe play games at times. Okay, so how is your municipality doing? And how is your school coordinating with the local government unit to provide this service to our students? So class advisors accomplish feedback form and evaluate students' performance for necessary interventions. No? So for reinforcement, remedial, or enrichment. Are you doing this? Are you giving feedback based on your evaluation from your modules? Are you informing the parents? And are you making activities, no, to reinforce, for remedial and enrich the students? To ensure the safety and well-being of children and teachers, make sure that all health and safety guidance and standard operating procedures are being implemented. So anyway, the kids are not allowed to go to school yet, but when you go to school, you yourselves, no, should protect yourselves from any harm. Teachers must give assistance to the parents in terms of their children's education. They must provide necessary innovations in order to promote learning, such as radio-based instruction, TV-based instruction. As what other teachers said, mag-aartista na lang ako. Right? Because as now you face the camera a lot of times, and you show your recorded videos, no? Or radio, like a radio commentator every time, because you are allowing your kids to listen to them. Teachers must give appropriate activities to learners experiencing difficulty in the reading and numbers. So, if possible, they must provide activities that focus on the 4 R's aside from the modules. All right. So be sure that you provide varied learning opportunities to the students. No, if the pedagogy that you're using is not effective, is a failure to others, then try to devise another one. So you have to be reflective as a teacher of what you're going to do, right? So did you pick something from any of those feedbacks from the respondents? So this is really based on actual action research. Okay, so based on the survey from the students, these are coming from them, what they feel and what they experience. They feel that the teacher should discuss learning materials given. Hey, are you discussing the materials that you're giving them, or you're just playing videos for them to watch? It's really different if you discuss the lesson once in a while. Then evaluate the progress of the students. As I mentioned earlier, there is really a need to evaluate their progress so that you will know how you can reinforce their learnings. Analyze results based on the statistical data to validate use of pedagogies. I already said that, no? That you have to be reflective of the effectivity of the pedagogy that you're using. If it's not, then try to change. The activity that you're giving should also be checked if it's useful or not. Verify from students what mode of learning they prefer. Yeah, maybe it's good to have a survey. What mode of learning they prefer. So that's why I'm saying that you have to have a background of the students in terms of learning styles and their multiple intelligences. Because if you go on board teaching, you know already what is the learning style of the students and you know the multiple intelligences. So you know basically what pedagogy can you use. And for those extreme cases, for example, you know also how to handle them. So if it's not a class, you can have a small group and maybe individual approach to reach out to the students. Listen to the students' thoughts or fears about the COVID-19 and support them. Do not invalidate them because all the reactions are really valid. Guide on what to do to cope with everything that's happening now. So that's coming from the voice of the students. So they want guidance so that they can cope with what is happening right now. Because others would just say, I'm done. I don't like to do it anymore. So they just quit. So and they're also asking you to be second parents. As I asked you earlier, are you treating them like your children? Make learning inclusive so that no one gets left behind. Okay, no child left behind policy. Remain as teachers and help in delivering their lectures through whatever resources they may find possible to use. Okay, so even if you have many resources, but you are still the best resource material, no, as a teacher. Because being there, that gives inspiration to the students. Are you an inspiration to them? All right. Teachers should make things simpler for the students. Do not make it complicated. Teachers should understand the situation of the students and not bombard students with pressures, deadlines, and schedules. Right? So if the students cannot comply, do not pressure them with deadlines and schedules. So give them ample time to comply. As I said, maybe because there is a problem in internet connectivity, maybe they have been bombarded with a lot of activities and exercises from all the subjects and all the teachers, and maybe they have also personal problems and family problems. And you know, this is coming from the students. Teachers deserve rest like the rest of the workers in the country. So if you need to pamper yourself, pamper yourself. Take time for yourself. No? We have been talking so much about your roles as teachers during this pandemic time. But at the end of the day, what is really very essential, what is very important also is the protection of yourselves as teachers. Taking care of your health, not only physical, but most importantly, your mental health during this pandemic time. So, this is based on the ASEAN post, no? Number one, that we can do as teachers is to reframe our thoughts. So, I know very well that many of us have been negative, but it says that instead of being negative, try to reframe it as a good time to do what you've always wanted to. Okay, so I remember one of my advisors was a sister. She said that when you look at the camera, you don't focus your camera at the negative views, no negative points, but you look for a positive view to take a picture. Basically, that's what we're going to do. So we look at the positive side of things, no? But it's easier said than done. But we can do it instead of dwelling on negativities. We can resort to something like baking, painting, making music, etc., etc. So for a while, I will show you one of my outputs. All right, sorry. During pandemic time, so before I celebrated my birthday last January, so I produced this album, no? So this is entitled Balangao. So this is my life story captured in songs. So there are 28 songs of this. And so this talks about my life story from childhood until now. So as I celebrated my golden year. So, and then this is available also in YouTube. So you can access my name, Rinaldo Garnase, and it's actually there. You can browse through and listen a portion of the songs that I have covered. And there are also original compositions. So this kept me busy for about October, November, December, for about 4 months, no? To produce this. So what about you? What have you been doing? Do you have framed artworks, or do you have pastries? Are you baking, or uh, have you produced any creative material? So this is one way of reframing our thoughts. Number two is focus on the needs of others, not only on our needs. Of course, our needs are very important, but it's also important if we look at the needs of others, because by doing so, we just realize that other people need more than we do, right? So in my Facebook, if we are friends, Ray Garnace, so I have a lot of posts about outreach activities, here and abroad. No, I went to Indonesia to have an outreach activity, and recently during pandemic time, we went to Bicol to have outreach activity, and I caption it as "Just give till it hurts." So even if you have nothing to give, just continue giving anyway. So because the Lord appreciated the beggar who gave his last cent, no? Than the rich man who looked for the smallest bill in his pocket. As churchgoers, right, we normally look for the lowest bill or coin before we give the yellow bill or the blue bill, even the violet bill. It's hard to give that in the church. So we look for orange or for red or for coins. All right, so it's very important that we focus on the needs of others. So just today, there was a blessing of the Jubilee door at the Redemptorist, and the theme now of the celebration of the 500 years Christianity is gifted to give. So we are all gifted. The Lord gave us a lot of gifts. We have the three T's: the time, the treasures, and our talents. And so we are gifted, and to make it more meaningful, we have to give the gifts also that have been given to us. We have to share these gifts that we have, no? In terms of resources. So we have three T's to share: talents, time, and treasure. So focus on the needs of others. Think about what you can do to help others, from sending care packages to frontliners to helping the weak or cooking for your loved ones. So I remember during pandemic time, my car was filled with goodies, soft drink, water, sliced bread. So when I pass by the frontliners, so I would give some of them. And then in the school also, I'll give to the janitors, to the security guards. So, and it feels so light, even if you don't have money in your ATM. for as long as you've shared something. All right, so create a new schedule. Structure helps provide a sense of stability. Remember to always include an activity you look forward in your daily schedule. So sometimes we stick to our routines, no, and sometimes it can be boring to be doing the same things all over. So what you do is integrate something that is new that you have not tried yet. So maybe in a week. So now that I am on leave, for example, so I have to agree with my kids and my wife that I should have a me time. Uh, there should be a yes time in the family. So the yes time is like my kids would ask me us to do something, then our response should only be okay, yes. Of course, for as long as it will not harm anyone in the family. So create something different for the week. If it's not for a day, maybe for a week, something that should do a road trip, go to the river, climb a mountain, go to a resort you've not gone to, meet a family member for as long as we continue to observe protocols. Then know when to switch off. We've been bombarded with a lot of news information about the surge of coronavirus every day, and it gets to our nerves, no? Well, it's important that we get updated, but give your time a rest from all the COVID news and just enjoy life, watch movie, walk the dog. So personally, I walk every day for an hour or two. I walk our three dogs, and it gives a relief. I feel light doing it every day. So reach out to loved ones. It's amazing that during face to face, it's harder to reach out to our loved ones because we have to visit them, especially if they are in other parts of the world. But at this time, the world is getting smaller. Uh, because we have the way of connecting to them. So I remember I would receive links to be connected for a novena for the dead, or for a prayer, or for just a reunion virtually. So we get connected through phone calls, text messages, and video calls at this time. So it's very important that we still reach out to our loved ones at this time, not physically but virtually. Then, when things get worse or worst, seek professional help. If it becomes difficult for you to cope, then it is okay to look for professional advice. There is no stigma in doing so. The time has really changed now that we have started to accept that, mental health issue has to be resolved. It's just like a simple illness that it needs medication. So we have to seek professional help. All right. So we have also this activities that we can do to cope our pressures, our depression during this pandemic. So which of this are you doing? Are you doing an aerobic exercise? Are you doing yoga and meditation, relaxation exercises, indoor play, online learning courses, music, reading, installation of hope, positive thinking, creative activities, or prayer? So which of this are you doing? So maybe in a week, as much as possible, you have done all this, or if not, maybe in a month, you have tried all of this, no? In the whole month. Okay? So there are also some opportunities during this crisis. During Yolanda, as I mentioned earlier, it was an opportunity to improve our educational infrastructures, facilities, equipment, and of course, the teachers became more compassionate. So we got a lot of support from NGOs and from the government, of course. And in a span of 2 years, we were able to bring back the glory that was Pisay EBC. It stood very proud and beautiful. And we also improved the academic performance, and the kids brought home bacons, no, from different competitions, world champion in robotics, informatics, research, Olympiads, Odysseys, and the Breakthrough Junior Challenge. So it was like a peak of the 6 year recovery from Yolanda that our school stood proud and prominent. Right? And at this time, COVID, it gives us more family time, right? So because we have a less time to be going outside, so we have ample time to stay at home. We are more conscious of our well-being. We exercise. We give ample time for self-care, rest, and spiritual communion. And yes, we spend more time on webinars. And then nature took respite from the daily pollution. Yes, because the streets are not so busy, so it's cleaner outside, and it's also good to have communion with our environment. And we know very well that the Filipinos are known to be resilient. We have the ability to overcome whatever difficulties that we go through. In closing, Charles Darwin said, "It is not the strongest of species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change." So, who are you here? Are you the strongest species, uh, or the most intelligent one? For me, I am the most adaptable to change. So whatever the situation is, I adjust because nothing in this world is permanent but change. All right. So thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed our session one for this activity. So please stay connected with our second session. We have our workshop. Make an action research about your own experiences and struggles during this pandemic time, both at work and at home. And then highlight your coping mechanisms to keep yourself healthy, both physically and mentally. So, if it is possible, it's good to have a presentation of your action research so that you will get credit for that. So, maybe PCPD will have an opportunity to allow you to present your action researches. We actually have an international research conference, integrated research conference, IRC. We are now in our third year in a row, so you can present it there, or maybe there can be a separate presentation so that it's like a form of demo teaching and you will get a certificate for that. All right, so you are given ample time to work on this to complete your credits for the PCPD certificate that you are getting. Are there any questions? All right. So this would be my bibliography from the whole topic that I delivered. Thank you so much for the references, for the authors. And my last quotation would be, what the world needs now is solidarity. With solidarity, we can defeat the virus and build a better world. So, dear teachers, continue to be an inspiration to our students because you are heroes. Thank you, and a pleasant day to everyone.